Liberal MP Dan Tehan is chairman of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security. He joins us now live from Canberra. Mr Tehan, thank you very much for joining ABC News tonight. What is the government hoping to achieve by stripping away Australian citizenship from foreign fighters?
Well, what it means is that we've got another deterrent that we can use to stop people going over to fight for Daesh or for thinking about committing terrorist acts here in Australia. It gives us something else which we can say to people, this is wrong, you should not be doing this, especially you should not be joining the Daesh death cult, and you should be thinking long and hard before you listen to their propaganda.
Is there evidence, I know that you today were citing that this actually works in the UK, is there evidence from the UK that deterrents like this do work, particularly to young men who appear to have been radicalised on the internet, for instance?
Look, the evidence from the UK is that they've used it judiciously, they've used it in very rare circumstances, but where they have, it has been effective in that they've been able to deal with people who were seeking to do harm to the United Kingdom, and the ability of the government to act in those cases and to take citizenship away has meant that those people haven't been able to come back to the United Kingdom and to carry out the threats that they were thinking of carrying out against that country. On
that point though, it's already a crime to return to Australia if you, say, were fighting in Iraq and Syria. So what's the difference in introducing this specific measure?
Well, it gives us another measure to be able to use against people who want to do us harm. Obviously, citizenship is an extraordinary privilege and it is something which people should treasure. And if they are contemplating or thinking about taking up arms against us, then we should have the ability to say to them, well, you are jeopardizing that extraordinary privilege.
Is it also that, say, the government doesn't want to be liable for incarceration? You know, it is expensive to put people in prison in Australia. Is it saying to people, you will have nothing to do with Australia if you go overseas to fight?
What it's saying is that there could be circumstances where we think that you have betrayed our nation. How I see this is what we're doing really is modernising our treason laws. These people are traitors. They're committing treason against us, and therefore what we're saying to them, if you want to do that, then one of the tools that we have available to us is to strip you of your Australian citizenship.
So is it in many ways a symbolic change?
I don't think it's symbolic. I think it's real in that it enables the Immigration Minister to act where he sees fit and where he thinks it's in the national interest to act. So I think it's more than symbolic. As the UK has shown, it can be used and they have used it. So I think it's much more than something which is just symbolic.
We've heard reports today of a cabinet split over whether these laws could be actually applied to sole Australian citizens. Can you give us any more detail into how these laws might apply to Australians who fall under that category?
Well, so the UK laws state that where the minister thinks that there are reasonable grounds that the person could take up another citizenship, then they can act. So the discussion which is occurring and which is in the discussion paper which the government has released is whether we should go as far as the UK has. Now, obviously, that is something that we want to take feedback on. It does mean, for instance, if someone was a dual citizen and had revoked their other citizenship, do we want to give the minister the ability to say, well, even though you've revoked your other citizenship, we think that you could get that back, and therefore if you've carried out a terrorist act against us or advocating terrorism against us, we think there are reasonable grounds you could get that other citizenship back. Therefore, he might consider stripping that individual of their Australian citizenship. That's the type of example we're looking at. Now, obviously, that's in the discussion paper and we want to take community feedback on that.
What are your personal views, Mr Tehan? Do you believe that there is a risk that people would be left stateless and, in fact, it's encroaching on people's fundamental human rights?
Look, I don't think that the government wants to render people stateless. I think that's a line in the sand that we've drawn. So now it's really just a legal argument about how far we want to go in terms of being able to act in this regard. My personal view is that I think the UK laws have got the balance right, but look, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously there's going to be community consultation on that, there will be feedback on that, and then we can see in the end where we're going to end up in terms of the legislation we put to the Parliament.
Mr Tehan, very quickly, what did you make of George Christensen's comments to the party room today that quotes multiculturalism had led to the problems Australia is facing with foreign fighters?
Look, Eliza, I don't speak about what is said or not said in the party room. The party room is where members of Parliament are able to go in and speak freely, and what goes on in the party room stays in the party room. I think this has been a very mature discussion that we've had around this issue. My hope is that will continue. I think it will. I think it's an important discussion for the nation to have, and I look forward to seeing Philip Ruddock and Conchita Fierravanti-Wells carrying out discussions across the nation on these important issues.
All right. Dan Tehan in Canberra, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Eliza.